How can we leverage what we know and bring it home to people and create their home outside, which is the name of our firm, Home Outside. Because home is not just your house, right? It's your house is part of your home, but your full property is actually as much about home as your house is.
Welcome to another episode of Forging the Future, and I'm here today with Julie Moir Messervy, one of America's most acclaimed landscape designers and the founder and CEO of Home Outside, a cutting-edge technology to make beautiful, sustainable designs accessible at scale, right? So thanks for being here, Julie.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. It's so fun to be in Houston at long last.
Finally, yes, finally. And we'll get to that part of the story.
Good.
But tell us a little bit about your background. You have decades of experience.
Decades and decades.
As I do. So
I'm a little older than you.
In creating exquisite and environmentally conscious outdoor spaces. So where did this passion for you start?
It started when I was a little girl in a big family, 7-kid family. Always felt like a birthday party. Always wildness around me, and I needed to get out into nature to get away from it. And I'd go we're surrounded by forests and fields, and I'd go out alone or with my siblings and friends, and it just got into my heart. So when I was older and I went to college and did art history. So I was sort of looking at the visual world that way. And then I went to architecture school and did city planning. And in the middle of a course on Japanese design, I opened up a book on Japanese gardens and I fell madly in love. And the reason was because I recognized the places that I loved, only they were more cleaned up and more perfect in a Japanese garden than what I had seen. So I was able to go to Japan, work with a garden master for a year and a half, and then back later after I knew something, and brought that back to my own career. And I've been really building gardens ever since.
Wow. And where were you growing up?
I was at first in Illinois, outside of Chicago. And then when I was 11, we moved to Connecticut and went from sort of a level landscape with trees to a more vertical landscape. So I was very lucky to have some beautiful places to learn from.
Which one do you like more?
Well, I love the Northeast, although I go back to Illinois here and there too. I have a lot of family there still.
Nice.
Yeah.
So where did the inspiration for your early work come from? Was it those Japanese gardens? Is that what really kind of
it started there, Chris, and everyone still seems to think I only do Japanese gardens, and that is not at all the case. My early work was inspired by Japanese gardens. Without doing an apprenticeship that's many, many years, you really can't call yourself an expert in this. It's a very deep and wonderful field, but my work, I was able to finish my apprenticeship way back and by doing the Museum of Fine Arts Japanese garden with my garden master. And he did it. It was his design, and I got it built. So I learned that way. And then I just started building gardens for other people and little by little built up a career where I started to create my own style. It always sort of had some deep roots of beauty and meaning that I got from Japan. And as I did that, I started building parks for people, and eventually did the music garden in Toronto, which I was able to do with Yo-Yo Ma, the wonderful cellist. And in fact, I brought you a present.
Oh, wow, thank you.
It's a book on the music garden and how we built it. And that has been now open for 20 years. So I have a long career, as you can see.
Well, then what came first? Because you've written something like, 9 books and done a bunch of lectures.
Yeah.
Did you start being the landscape designer and then wrote the books? You wrote the books and then, or is it all in parallel?
It's all in parallel,
How did you
Chris.
become an author?
Yeah, I became an author because like you with this podcast, you want to teach. You want to give back. You want to learn what you know. I think one way that when you teach, you learn about what's in your brain, but you've never sort of made it explicit. Lecturing similarly. So I just always did all of them, then had my kids. So that was a big piece of it.
Yeah. Well,
and actually, Chris, I learned, I think maybe the most from watching my children grow in a landscape and use it and discover it.
Okay.
And I applied all that learning to my craft.
Nice. Now, you also did all of this while you were a mom. You were doing it at home at your kitchen table and running your business. Just like
I love
me.
that.
That's right. So tell me a little bit about how that was, because that was a number of years ago as well, right?
Yeah, that was.
And it wasn't so common back then.
No, I loved what I did too much to just not do it. So I always did something, but it was complicated, as you know. You sort of have your little office. You go in there and try not to have all the children beat down your door while you're on a client call. I somehow kept it going. And, but you slowed my career down a little bit. And so what's fun is that early time was made up now at my age. I'm able to just keep going because I'm still so passionate about what I do. But now I want to bring it to more people.
Was there any stigma back then to running it out of your house? Because my experience was then you weren't really a real company, right?
Yes.
20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you didn't have an office. So, and you've worked with some pretty big names, like you said, the Toronto Music Garden, working with Yo-Yo Ma.
Yeah.
These are
well, it's always funny bringing somebody like that to your office, which is your dining room table. But it didn't matter in his case because he and I play the piano. So to get ready to do the music garden, he came and we actually played music together.
Did you really?
And he came out into my garden, which was, a rudimentary garden at that point with small children. But he sat on one of my stones and played the first cello suite by Bach, which that garden is based on.
How cool is that?
And what happened, Chris, was that the whole place came alive. Butterflies started flying. My dogs started running around. The children chased the dogs. The place came alive because of music and that first cello suite by Bach. So we knew that when we made the park, it would be a fantastic park.
Interesting.
And it is. It's a 3-acre public park on Toronto on its harborfront.
Well, and I like the fact that, one of my own inspirations when I'm trying to do something, whether it's a Christmas gift or otherwise, is trying to put more meaning in it besides just the actual element that it is, right? Whether it's a deck of cards or, cribbage board, etc. But this park actually, it says it's inspired by Bach, and the layout actually follows the whole
The 6 movements that are part of that music.
So you actually did landscaping that was tied or reflected in each movement.
Exactly.
That is really interesting.
Our design came out of listening and listening to the music. I played it for everyone who worked on that property. And so we all had a shared vision of what this piece should be. And it wasn't just mine or just Yo-Yo's. It was ours and Bach's, of course.
Well, our brains, I think, are very uniquely wired for music. I think it's fascinating that if I give you a 7-digit number, you're going to maybe remember it and maybe not.
Yeah.
But in music, really anybody remembers the words and the melodies to songs and whether they're correct or not, whether they play music or they don't.
Yeah.
Or if you're a musician, if you had to just rattle out the notes that you need to play right in a row, you couldn't do it. But you could stand up there and play a symphony for 2 hours in the correct order, with the right timing, with the right emphasis, and totally from memory.
It's amazing, isn't it? And what's interesting is that actually music and gardens are very similar because think about it. It's about flow. It's about movement through something. It's about resting. Like on a bench, rests. It's about going up and down, in and out. So creating a garden that was based on music was a natural thing when you look at it. And really, to bring it full circle to what we're doing together, when you think about creating rules, AI rules that take plants and put them into collections and put them into the right place on your property. That's you're making a kind of musical statement of your front yard. And that's what we're trying to do with Softtech, helping us find a way to do that and code it in a way that will be lasting and broad and have meaning for the people who are looking at it, and beauty and sustainability.
I haven't thought of gardening and from the music standpoint. There is a big correlation between music and software development, actually.
There you are. Same thing.
In fact, and I'm not spoiling anything because this episode will probably air after Christmas, but the Christmas gift this year at Softtech, I picked a music instrument. It's actually called a thumb piano or a kalimba.
Oh, yeah, I know those.
And so because when IBM in the 1960s was trying to hire the first programmers, there were no computer science graduates. And they actually found that musicians had a similar aptitude for coding. It's a very creative process,
Absolutely.
of course. Yeah. But also you have this abstraction between the sheet of music and how it's coded and then what that output is once you essentially compile or play it. Right?
Exactly.
And so they hired musicians. And over the years, I've noticed a pretty large correlation between developers at Softtech and musicians. They usually a large number of our developers also play music,
don't they?
Yeah.
Or if you put them all together, you'd have a symphony. Yeah. And I just know from working with our team, our Softtech team, that I'm sure that if they don't actually play an instrument, they're playing something by thinking conceptually and thinking about the journey that our idea needs to take to be able to make it into fruition.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was at MIT also for graduate school. And one of the things that was so fun was to be around people who are so creative in a way that's different than my right brain necessarily. But there's still so much of the right brain being able to conceptualize and then turn it into something that's a really a doable, makeable prospect. And that's, again, we've been so lucky to be able to make our idea real,
right,
by being able to be part of the venture studio.
Nice.
In your first cohort.
Yes, you were. Our first cohort with 5 companies, and that was a year ago.
Yeah.
The point I was going to make about music is that the science actually says now, if you want your kids to be smart, don't teach them coding first.
Yeah.
Teach them music.
Yes. It's a hard thing to do, is to learn to be able to look at music, put your hands to it of some sort, and have it sound like something that's beautiful.
Well, so you wrote these books, you did the landscaping, you had a good career doing that, but then you decided to go to leverage technology to take that even further. And you actually did an app on your own.
Yes.
Before you came into the Softtech studio. So talk a little bit about what that was about.
So I've, as I got older, it was important to give back as well and to sort of leave a legacy that was for everybody, to democratize. Rather than working just for well-to-do people or doing parks necessarily, how could I bring this to every person's yard? What it is that we, my team in Vermont, all-woman team in Vermont, how can we leverage what we know and bring it home to people and create their home outside, which is the name of our firm, Home Outside. Because home is not just your house, right? It's your house is part of your home, but your full property is actually as much about home as your house is. It's the first thing you see when you come home is your landscape, and it's the last thing you leave, and it makes you feel good. So I wanted to help people go from having just yards of either mulch or grass to something that would really defined who they were and also did good for the climate. And that's another piece that we're working on.
And how did the app do that initially?
The original app, it was very simple. It was a 2D pre-drawn drag and drop app. We did it probably 12 years ago or more. Bethany, our wonderful illustrator in our studio, drew all the elements that are part of every landscape, from the garage and the house to the front path to the plants, in general, to the mulch pile, the compost pile. So it was all there, and you could drag and drop it into place. And you could put it on top of your Google Earth image of your house, and you could design your own home pretty easily for very little money. And we had 1 million downloads.
That's fantastic.
I mean, we did it because I don't love to draw. I like to play, and this was playful for me. And it turns out lots of other people used it too. At the same time, though, we knew that most people can't design their own yards, even if you give them a good app, right? They don't know how to do it. It's really scary for people. So we created the first remote design service for landscape and used our app to be able to show people what their yard could look like and give them all the notes for how to make it happen. Very conceptual, but to visualize it, but then also to be able to make it actionable by showing people what they had to do first and phase it. And, we help people a lot. We did many hundreds of those. But I knew it wasn't scalable, Chris. So
you
that
got
was
to
the
a million
problem.
people, which is impressive because even back in the day, when you release an app, it was like a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, well, it's over time, right?
You got 1 million downloads over time. Still, that's impressive.
Thank you.
What? So was it difficult to go from something that's very hands-on, outdoors, plants, to having this technology like an app running on an iPad, taking that technology step for you, or did you have any technology background?
No, I had none. I had zero.
Okay.
But what I had was I had written the book, Home Outside, and I knew that people would like it. I gave all of my knowledge away in theory in the book, but I knew there had to be a better way, and I knew that technology was it. I also knew that we lived and worked in Vermont, which is a rural community, and to be able to continue to get clients in, it seemed like doing something remote would be a good way to do it. So we did those two things in parallel. We did them for a number of years. But then I realized pretty fast that AI and ML and all these machine learning, all this was starting to come into play. And it seemed to me that there must be a way to scale so that we could help people in a more automated way and make it easier for people to see what it is that they could do, especially with 3D technology. So
was that important to go from the 2D to the 3D?
Very, 2D is really great for designers because we can kind of read, and we know how far apart plants should be and where you want to place things. It's great. But 3D shows people what it can look like, and they can really buy into it and get excited about it that way, and have confidence that what they want to see will actually come to fruition.
But you didn't really have any 3D experience.
I had none.
So how did you solve that problem?
Well, what happened was I had this vision that there was a way to do it, but I didn't know how. So I was educated by entrepreneurial incubators, so I went to Launch VT was my first one. They taught me some things, worked on things like business models. I had no idea how to do that. I had run a little design business all my life, so they taught me a lot of things. And then I went to Mass Challenge, which is a great incubator in Boston, 100 other groups like me. I learned a lot. It was just pre-pandemic. I learned about, venture capital and all these things I would need to know. But I still didn't know how to build the product. But as I did that, I met David Rose, who's our CIO, our innovation officer, and he had just done the Warby Parker try-on tool.
Glasses, right?
The glasses tool that online. And he basically said, well, I'd love to work with you because you're doing I did the landscape of the face. Let me do the landscape of the property now. And so he started to introduce me, and somehow, then we got Amir, who's our COO, and he's done many startups and exits, and so he brought me some.
So you're building out the team.
I was building out the team that I have the design team already, and they're still with me, every one of them, five women.
Okay.
But I didn't have sort of the knowledge piece, so I got that. And then they introduced us to you.
Right.
Somehow all of our connections. And that was the piece that we needed, was somebody to help us build the product, to envision the product and tell us how to make it happen. I have a vision, but I don't know how to do this.
Right.
So it was a game changer for us, really, to be able to be in the first venture cohort and to work with you all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing product. And really, frankly, it's the type of product that I started SoftTech to build. So something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
It's 3D, it's graphics, it's using things from Google Earth, it's trying to use AI to figure out where's the door, right?
Exactly. It's really hard.
Windows, where are the paths, where should we put plants? What kind of plants would look
yes.
proper here, and how to visualize that. So.
It's really hard, and we didn't know how hard it was until we did our first, in the first 3 months, we came up with the sort of the pre-alpha release.
POC, basically.
What would you call it?
Yeah, I call it POC, or the demo is what you
the demo we did. And that was really terrific because we suddenly had something to look at, And we knew that if we could do that demo in such a short amount of time, there's a way we could make this work.
Yeah.
I wasn't really sure we could before that.
And then you leveraged that demo to get more customers interested.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
Was it the customers, their investors, or both? I mean, what kind
both.
of order? Yeah.
So having the demo and then having a consistent team that we were little by little honing in on who are the best people for us to be working with. And you put them together for us. We have an amazing team that really, the systems architecture brain of our lead engineer is quite astonishing. And then his ability to sort of find when do we need machine learning? How do we get that done? Where all of this, front end, back end developers, it's been amazing to watch. I've learned so much, right? So what happened was having a product meant that it's real. This thing can be built. Continuing to refine it meant that we could go to investors and little by little show them as we made progress. This is a real thing. So we were able to raise we were trying for 1.5. We're at 1.25 million.
For your seed round.
For our seed round with an incredible, wonderful group. And then we were able then also to find products, that are partnerships for products. So our idea is that you can put in your address and we can automatically show you your front yard and eventually your backyard, visualized, re-rendered, the scene rendered for you in your own front yard. And we can then drop in plants and products to show you what they will be.
And there's a sustainability piece to this as well,
A
right?
very important part is that it turns out that your yard might be one of the best things you can do to sort of help with climate change. Because not only can we sequester carbon by putting in plants that really take it in, just like trees do, so do shrubs, so do perennials. If you only had grass there, that's fine. There's some carbon there that you can sequester, but better when you start to add more actual larger plants like shrubs and trees and perennials. So that's one way, but then there's biodiversity. We can help with pollinators. We can help bring back birds and insects that need to be there, that are being lost. Butterflies, the most important. We can help with drought tolerance and with flood by the kinds of plants that we use.
Oh, really?
We can get energy savings in there by putting a shade tree in just the right place to shade the house. So you can save a little bit on air conditioning. So much we can do.
And there's so many yards out there.
And there's so many, 55 million yards. People,
really?
Households with yards that could use our help just in the United States alone.
Interesting.
And it's a $130 billion industry.
Really?
The landscape products and services industry. So it's not a small thing. And the thing that sets us apart, I think, besides now with the technology and having the team all together, is that my team has deep and broad knowledge about the landscape architecture field itself. So that's very, that sets us apart from other tech plays that are out there.
One of the things that we're also focused on is women founders, and you're a women founder.
Yes, proudly.
Is there any advice you would give? I mean, I know you started it from your kitchen table, right? And you've gone through this process and different points in time in your company's life cycle, right? Now you've ended up more on the technology side. Any advice you might give to?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you for asking that. I think that people's lives start in different ways, and they if you find your passion early on, and you're able to continue to follow that passion, it can take you for a long, long time. I mean, I'm old, and I still love what I'm doing, and I can apply it in a new way thanks to technology. I can give back to the world in a new way, and I can kind of pull things together at an age that I never, I don't think that my mother's generation could have done so. So we have a different kind of cadence to our lives, I think, maybe. I watched my kids grow up very closely, but I also worked off my dining room table part-time. And now I'm continuing to watch my grandchildren and continue what I've started. So I feel very, very lucky.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I think similarly with myself and Softtech, when I first started, the first 10 years of the company, I really ran it more like a lifestyle business.
Yeah.
Right? I was at home.
Yep.
We had our kids there. I wanted to be close to them.
You wanted to be close to them.
And it wasn't until they started going to college that I decided to take my foot off the brake. Right.
Yes.
And started the next phase in the business. And,
that's exactly what I did.
It's a very parallel path.
And I did it when my kids went to college. I remarried, moved to Vermont, a rural place, and then found the great talent that was around me. They found me, and that's been my team ever since. So you never know what's going to happen.
Is the landscaping design business heavily weighted toward women? Because you have a 5-woman team, right?
It turns out I didn't mean
that
to. There are plenty of men out there that are great men in the field. It's just funny that the designer group that I have, I think they were partly attracted to me. First of all, I had a big career before I got there, so I could bring good jobs to us all. Yeah. I could support us that way, although the tech, doing the remote design helped too. I had a reputation, so that was great. But they also were attracted by the way I did the business, which was we worked around their schedules.
Right.
Anything that they needed to do for their family came first.
Very flexible.
Very flexible. We worked part-time. They could work as part-time as they want. Anything they wanted for their family and for themselves is what I knew they would get the work done. They always did. So it was very flexible, and that allowed them to have their family in the way that I had wanted to have my family too. Be there as much as I needed to be.
It's an important point, and I know that a lot of businesses are debating this now after COVID, right? So everyone's had a taste of what we've already known.
Yes.
Like I started Softtech 25 years ago this way, and it feels like it's come full circle because I still work from home most of the time right now. So even though my office is 10 minutes away, and just the power of being able to be at home, not making that commute. Being able to work when you need to or want to, being able to go out and have lunch with the family if you want to, and then go back and work, and then be there for dinner time.
Exactly, Chris.
Or the play activities or the sport activities, and if you need to go and work a few more hours at night, and really first of all, there's a lot of trust involved.
Trust, right? It's the word I was going to say.
And just worry not being a clock watcher, but you're hey, I don't need you to be in the office because I'm not sure that if you're not at the office whether you're working or not. It's just about you just trust the fact that, hey, you're going to get it done. And if you get it done, that's all that matters.
And the trust comes out of a passion that you have, that others are attracted to and want to be part of. This big idea that you're promoting. Without promoting it, you just embody it, right? And that's really what I've tried to do, is live a life of good beauty and meaning in a sense, right?
That's right.
It's a simple thing. The other thing I've always promoted in our work, and I think you do the same, is what I call joyful process.
Okay.
And it sounds very hokey. I don't care. It's the litmus test by which I measure whether we're doing a good job, whether our clients are satisfied, whether our partnerships are happy. And if they're not, then we have to go and get in there and fix it so it's joyful again. And the people who work with me, are they joyful? And part of my job as CEO is to check on that and make sure they are. And when they're not, give them the space to heal a little bit. So those are all part and parcel of being a good CEO, I think.
Well, I've noticed that in working with you. I mean, I can see why people are attracted to that, and being inspiring as well, right, to the team.
Yeah, I think we both are.
And having that attitude, because you're right. I mean, if there's something wrong, and it's not, we spend so much time of our lives, working in the company, that if it's not a place people want to come to work, then what's the point?
Exactly.
Right? So. That's an interesting way. Joyous process.
Joyful process. But joyous is good too.
TM, Julie. Interesting. All right. How about some speed round questions?
Sure.
You up for that?
Yeah.
What's your favorite outdoor activity?
Oh, swimming.
Swimming, really?
Yeah, we have a big pond that just somebody put in before we got there, and it's I swim.
Pond?
It's a big pond with it's
You have
deep.
lily pads in there and stuff?
No, then I wouldn't want to swim in it. It's pretty pure and deep, a lot of springs and an inlet and an outlet.
Really?
And I swim around and around. It's round all summer from May until October.
Interesting.
Until I can't do it anymore.
We have so much in common because swimming is my
Is it? Ha.
my activity. What book are you currently reading?
Yeah, I'm reading a book that by Peter May, who's a Scottish author, about, I think it's called The Black House, and it's about the Isle of Lewis off of Scotland.
Okay.
And I'm Scottish, so I love Scotland. And I did a garden in Edinburgh for a wonderful couple. And I didn't know it at the time. It's sort of a Japanese garden. I hadn't done one for a while. And I used these beautiful stones they found, and I put them in, placed them, and found out the next day they're the oldest stones in the world.
Really?
500 million years old from the Isle of Lewis. So I happen to be reading a book on the Isle of Lewis right now.
Interesting.
Yeah. Really old, beautiful stones.
Yeah, it's funny how those connections come up. What developing outdoor installation do you have your eye on?
There's various memorials that I like to watch out for. We've done a few ourselves. We did a memorial to the 4 teachers who died in the Newtown massacre.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's very important work. I work in cemeteries a lot too, and that's like very spiritual, sacred work. So I watch over what's happening in that world a little bit because it's you do something that's not right, that doesn't sit right aesthetically, and you hurt the experience of the sacred that's there. So I like to follow those.
It's an interesting
projects.
Part of the design puzzle.
It's very tricky to get it right. Yeah.
Okay, and one last closing question: how are you forging the future in climate change? I think I know the answer to this one already, but
thank you. Yes, we're trying. I think what's so exciting about working in the outdoor space is, as I said before, is there's so much opportunity to change the way landscaping is done right now. We were talking before about how, people using annuals, which are beautiful plants. I love them, but with lots of mulch around them. That may not be the most sustainable way to do your yard. I think if you use more shrubs and trees and perennials that come back all the time, so you can just let them be or just do a little bit of tweaking and let them grow together so you don't even see the mulch. That's a really great solution. If you use clover lawns, if you have drainage in the right places so that when you have your floods here, that's a big one. And your drought. These are things that all have to be thought about in the landscape.
Interesting.
That wasn't a fast. That was not a fast response.
Because I have a stat here that you've captured 140,000 pounds of carbon in home outside.
We're trying. Yeah. I would say we're
Is that
getting.
The goal?
That's the first year goals, but there's a lot we can do with sequestering carbon by planting more plants.
How do I get you over to do my yard?
Anytime, Chris.
Just joking. So how can someone find and connect with you?
Yes, so I'm at julie@homeoutside.com.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn, Julie Moir Messervy. And write to us, and we'd love to talk to you. I've just met some of your new cohort, and already there's always so many connections that one can make with what people are doing in a creative way. With the startup world. So let's all do it together. Let's make it a better world.
So homeoutside.com is your website.
Yes.
And then you can get to the app from there, or is the app out yet?
What we're doing is we're relaunching our website, which is homeoutside.com. It doesn't really show this platform that we're working on with you. Not yet. Okay. It's a little bit in the quiet stage. But it is in Q1, we're going to have it up. And you'll be able to put in your address and be able to see your front yard visualized for you with plants and products in it. And eventually we'll get to the backyard, which will be really exciting. The way that we do it is we have partnerships, and so that we show their products, and then you can go and buy them on their site, the plants that are there, or whatever products that we're showing.
Fantastic. So that's something to look forward to.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, thank you for the book. I will definitely be looking and reading this.
Too.
Oh, that too.
That's
well, thank
for you. Too.
That's great.
It's not home outside. I'll get you that one of these days.
Perfect. Landscaping ideas at work. Well, I have something for you as well.
Oh.
Julie, one of the things I like to do is wear
I see that you
different
have
socks.
Great socks.
This is a Florida sock, actually, but it was the closest thing I could find with trees and plants. I got the space shuttle on there. But anyway, foliage. And so I like crazy socks. We got you some socks, some butterflies.
Oh, I love them. Oh, look at that.
Enjoy.
And my favorite colors. They're just gorgeous. I can't wait to put them on. And thank you so much. This was very fun to talk to you,
Thank you
Chris.
for being on the show.
And thank you for all you're doing for Home Outside.
Absolutely.
With the Venture Studio and Soft Tech.
Happy to do it.
Okay.